Live from a bunker in the heart of the Ozarks, a podcast that also wished it was Inception and failed. Or did it? It's Sif Pop. Welcome to Sif Pop Weekly, streaming live most Fridays, are available to download later in your podcast feed, unless, of course, you're a patron.
Patrons get perks.
Patrons get those perks.
Those kids killed so many people.
I'm your host, Aaron Dicer, and he once had an email read by the actual Strong Bad. It's Andrew Ormsby, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy! It's not the fact that, Hideo Kojima used to watch my YouTube channel or the fact that my YouTube videos have been on CNN. No, it's the fact that whenever I was 12 years old, Strong Bad read one of my emails.
How did I not know this about you?
I didn't know it was that big a thing.
Well, now you do.
Okay.
And each week we'll chat about movies, TV, and whatever else from the pop culture universe is on our minds. And please welcome our guest this week. His list may include more than song lyrics, stub toes, and cannon cars. It's Jonathan Paula, ladies and gentlemen.
Ahoy to yourselves, gentlemen. Good to be back. Excited to be back for fourth time on Sif Pop to discuss a Fast and Furious film. My first ever appearance on this program, back when it was called something else, was discussing Furious 7 8 long years ago. And I came back to talk about Fate of the Furious and defend F9. And I am back again for my buddy Dom and the crew.
No, it's not your buddy. That's your family.
That's right. You tried to defend F9. It was valiant.
Tried.
It was a valiant effort.
Hey, no, Aaron, you were there with him. I'm not going to let you sneak out of this. You were a proponent of F9 too.
You're insane. You need to go listen to that episode again.
I actually just did. Neither of you liked it. I'm curious, Aaron, if your feelings on F9 have improved. Have you had a chance to rewatch it?
No, they've only lessened.
Okay.
Every time I think about that movie, I get angry.
It was you two are just big defenders of the Fast and the Furious universe. I think
up
that's
until
what
then,
I'm getting
yes.
confused with.
Up until the last one, yes, and we'll get more into this as we review the movies we're going to review today, which we're excited to do.
What movies are those, Aaron?
We're going to talk about a movie called Hypnotic, Robert Rodriguez directing Ben Affleck, and a movie called Hypnotic that you have not heard about probably because nobody has advertised it.
Your email was the first time. You want me to do what now?
And then, of course, we're also going to review what I recently learned, thanks to an email from the publicist, is Fast 10. Not Fast X. Please, they said, do not call it Fast X. That is not the name of the movie. It is Fast 10.
Well, I can't imagine why anyone would get confused when you put an X in your title. One thing I have to say before we get to the reviews proper is at first it was a joke, and now I sort of admire that of the 11 feature films in the Fast saga, none of them have the exact same naming convention, right? The first is The Fast and Furious. Then they put Too Fast. They put the numeral 2. And then the third movie, Tokyo Drift, has a subtitle with a colon. And then the fourth one is Fast and Furious with no numbers at all, but also no words the. And then Fast 5, where 5 is spelled out in prose. And then Fast and Furious 6. This is the first time a numeral came in like 4 movies. And then Furious 7 is the first movie to drop the word fast completely. And then Fate of the Fury, totally new word introduced. F9 doesn't have any words. And then Fast
It's
and
a
Furious
keyboard key.
presents Hobbs and Shaw. That's a totally new thing. And then for this one, we're introducing Roman numerals. 11 pictures in, we're introducing Roman numerals. So what are they going to do for the 11th?
Who knows?
I can guarantee it won't be something we've seen before.
Ooh.
So maybe it'll just be Furious 11 with numerals because we haven't done that yet. I don't know.
Maybe it'll be
Or
in
rather-
semaphore.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, I think
They're all dumb.
I know what the title is going to be. It's going to be Fast X.5.
I think it might be Fast X2 or Fast
Fast
X
X2.
squared. I think that would be where they might go with it. I don't think they'll just call it Fast 11 or Furious 11, whether they spell it out or numerals or.
So this was Fast X. The next one could be Furious X.
Maybe that would be equally as stupid. So yes,
It would be equally stupid.
that could do it.
We haven't even introduced the movie yet, and we're already getting into it.
No, well, we've introduced it, but we haven't gone into it. By the way, interesting best ever challenge that we'll get to today.
Yes.
We're doing best ever movies where the title ends in either the letter C, like Hypnotic, or the letter X, like Fast 10. It was
I'll
so
tell
cute.
you, one of those letters I thought was going to be a lot harder than the other, and it turned out to be the exact opposite.
Interesting. My favorite part of the email where it was like it's Fast 10, not Fast X, was that they then just in the next sentence were very kind enough to explain to us how Roman numerals work. It was like, see, what it is an X is for the Roman numeral 10. Like, wow. Thank you for your high opinion of movie critics.
That is so... I almost swore right there. That is so condescending.
Yes, yeah.
And again, even with that insistence, they did not go for the obvious low-hanging fruit of Fast 10 your seatbelts. And it is such a missed opportunity. This is a joke that all of us penned like 4 movies ago. And it's like, it's right there, guys. That is a layup. And they're like, no. You won't get it.
Too easy. All right, well, let's get right into it, shall we? Too late for that. Let's get into it finally, shall we? Let's talk a little bit about Fast X. Over many missions and against impossible odds, Dom Toretto and his family have outsmarted, outnerved, and outdriven every foe in their path. Now they confront the most lethal opponent they've ever faced, a terrifying threat emerging from the shadows of the past, who's fueled by blood revenge and who's determined to shatter this family and destroy everything and everyone that Dom loves forever. Fast 10. Had a little bit of onset issues. Basically, if you kind of read into it, Vin Diesel and the director kind of weren't getting along, and so they waved bye-bye.
And this isn't just a director. This is Justin Lin, who had done, I think, 5 of the previous 10 movies.
Yeah. And so it's interesting to see what happens after you bring in another person. You've got, again... Well, I'm just gonna say everybody, from the Fast movies, and
so
as well as Jason Momoa coming on board as the villain. What did you guys think? Did you like this movie? Love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? I'm gonna go.
Aaron, I want you to go first.
Well, that's too bad. You don't control the show, John. I need to hear first and foremost what the preeminent Fast franchise defender thinks of this movie.
I really liked it.
Okay, high side of liked it.
I'm not ashamed of that.
Didn't sound like it at all.
Aaron?
I am firmly on the low side of it was just okay. So we'll get more into the reasons for that. Andrew, what about you?
I like only one thing about this movie. I don't like anything else. But that one thing is going to make me say that I like this movie.
I'll take it.
And
John's
I think I know the one thing. I think I know the one thing, and I'm prepared to argue with every single other human on the planet about this one thing. But John, we'll kick it off with you because I think you liked it the most. Still digging this franchise. Why, may I ask?
100%. That's a perfectly valid question, and as all the scenes in the trailer flash in front of us here, I'm reminded of first and foremost, I had a lot of fun with it, and I always do.
Mm-hmm.
This is the trope is very tired at this point, but you turn your brain off, you kind of just enjoy the junk food aspect of everything. These are characters we've come to know and love over the last 22 years. They've been doing Fast and Furious movies. So you kind of know what to expect. If you haven't liked the last 5 movies in this franchise, this is not going to win you over. I think this is definitely a step up from Fate of the Furious or F9 or Hobbs and Shaw. I think this is closer to the high water mark we had with 5, 6, and 7. I don't think it's as good, but the entire sequence in Rome with the rolling neutron bomb down the Spanish steps, it's absurd, but it's more realistic than sending a Pontiac Fiero to space. I felt like the execution of that was easy to follow. The payoff was really good. We got like good tag team between the different protagonists. Then the rest of the movie, things kind of spread out, and individual moments here and there definitely made me laugh or, cheer. It's just a ton of fun constantly. And then I'm sure all 3 of us will agree, Jason Momoa is having a meal of this movie. He is just.
I agree
Aaron
he's
doesn't
having
like
a meal.
him.
I agree.
Aaron
I agree that he's having a meal. That's for sure.
That's the one thing I like about this movie.
I
He
suspected. He's
yeah,
great.
and here's why. And everything about the Fast universe is so bombastic and ridiculous and wildly out there. But for some reason, the characters seem to always want to keep this kind of maintained, like they're not expressive, they're not emotive really with their emotions or their acting or anything. It's like the only subtle thing in the Fast universe is the acting for some reason. And I just thought it was high time. I thought it was finally high time to have somebody come on who was going to be as wild and peacockish as the Fast universe is. And I think Jason Momoa just jumped into it and said, I'm just going to show everybody my audition for Lobo. And yeah, now I really want to see a Lobo movie with Jason Momoa.
Yeah, he definitely rises to the tone of the rest of the action.
Yeah.
Whereas
he dresses like Sinbad from the 90s. It's great.
Yeah, and then conversely, I feel like, especially when you go back and watch older entries, Vin Diesel seems like he's getting quieter and more like grumpy.
Yeah.
Each movie,
Yeah,
and
that's
which
where
is
he's
too bad because
finding
he
his-
used to be
yeah.
animated. He used to be laugh. He used to laugh and smile. I don't think he smiles once in this entire 2.5 hour picture. Does he?
Yeah, he smiles.
I
does.
think when he
He
sees
has a
his
couple
kid.
moments. Yeah, he definitely has a couple smiles in the movie.
Aaron, so what is it about the Momoa performance that just
we'll get
didn't
there.
work for you?
I want to address a couple things that you
Go
guys
for
have
it.
said, and I do want to say that I am not beyond having fun. I've certainly had fun with many of the Fast movies, and I do think this is better than F9.
Oh yeah,
Dramatically so, in my opinion.
Yeah, this is a big step up from the last 3, which I all felt kind of lost focus of. I think what made him great.
I think it's similar to 7 and 8. I really do. I think it's kind of in much the same ballpark in that I can have fun. There are times where I'm able to have fun and it's not distracting me with its stupidity. Because there's a difference from being over the top and being dumb, right? And sometimes that difference is, by the way, very subjective. And a lot of it has to do with the mood you're in, how you're seeing something. I do not deny in the least that there's a psychological aspect to how we enjoy franchises. And that when we tire of something, all of the sudden you can't re-find that magic, right? And I think F9 pushed me over enough of a cliff of distraction in what I considered, dumbness, or, and if that's too rude, I apologize, but absurdity, let's say, and got very hard for it to win me back, because now that's all I'm seeing. So I was glad that I was
You're
able
saying
to have a little
F9
bit
was
of fun.
You're saying F9 was a bridge too far?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. It was.
They went
Or-
to space.
A magnet truck too far, perhaps?
Yes, it was.
I would say
It was
to distill it to
an orbiting car too far. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
To
let's just
distill
say
it to
this.
them-
Go ahead,
ahead.
John.
You start.
Well, let's say this. This movie's magnet truck is the bomb through Rome. where
Yeah.
physics and gravity, things like that, have no meaning anymore. Apparently, everything in Rome is downhill. It's one of my big issues with this franchise is that I don't think they know when to cut off their action sequences. Like, I think that whole action sequence in Rome with the bomb went on about 3 or 4 minutes, way too long. And I could say that for a lot of scenes in this movie that are like, don't get me wrong, they're in those sequences, there's some really cool stuff going on, but then at the same time, it's a lot of cars driving really fast in a quick vroom, 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 and that's not entertaining for me.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I would say if cars going fast is not entertaining for you,
No,
may
I'm
have
talking
entered
about
into
the
the wrong
quick
franchise. But
I'm talking about like that actual
I
like
get what you're saying.
cinematic style of like following a car and like the camera whipping with it.
They use a car as like a wish pan almost.
Yes,
what I was about to
exactly.
say is the difference for me between this and the last three, including Hobbs and Shaw, was I felt like they pulled back a bit on the reliance of magic technology. They use the previously established God's Eye as a sort of a mechanism to connect some scenes, but by and large, the action here is not insanely improbable like superhuman suits or magnet cars or I think in F8, Fate of the Furious, Charlize Theron has basically she commandeers all the cars in New York City using remotes. She just has like a magic tool.
Oh yeah, she does a World War Z with the
right, and it's like well that like not every car is plugged into it. Like it just all of that magic tech they scaled it way back for this. And yes, there's that neutron bomb that seems to constantly roll downhill. But besides that, most of the stuff here was like no, these are just it's improbable and impractical, but they're not relying on magic science to kind of fill in the gaps anymore. And I did appreciate that.
I don't know. The magnet bombs are pretty magic. Like, I mean, everything happens because it needs to happen. It really just is one of those things once you start to tune in to just the ridiculousness, it's hard to find yourself able to let go and have fun. And I feel like, one of the things when I was watching this movie starts with a rehashing of the safe from Fast Five, right? And I was so into that. And it
was a great opening.
It was a great, and I just remember going, oh, I loved this because this is audacious. It's big. You don't have to stretch your brain too far to even go, maybe it's possible. Maybe I can make this make sense a little bit. But now you just have to have an entire suspension bridge of disbelief to, get through these movies. And it's just becoming a little too difficult for me. Now, as to answer the Momoa question, which I've already hinted at, and you have asked me directly, I get what everybody loves about this performance because I've seen it before. Like this
Joker.
It's Joker. And once you see that, you can't unsee it. And it's not as good as that Joker either. And there's not enough fresh to it for me to be able to separate myself from seeing that when I'm seeing it going on. And there's another aspect I'm going to be careful about wading into that I'll get to here in a second. But it's like for me, when somebody does a great cover of a song on like American Idol or something like that, it's like, yes, I get it. There's talent there. It's amazing, but I still kind of want to hear Mariah Carey sing that song. That's when I'm watching Momoa, I'm like, yes, super talented. It's fun. I get it. I'm having a good time, but I really just kind of want to see go watch Heath Ledger's performance again. You know what I mean? Like, so
all perfectly valid criticisms, but in the pantheon of Fast and Furious villains, I hope that we can agree that there's nobody that is even on this level of entertaining or sociopathic energy. Because like John Cena in the last movie, like didn't really do anything for me. Charlize Theron is good, but I don't know, not as menacing. And
Deckard Shaw would be the only one that would come close.
Yeah, I think Jason Statham's the only one that's like as fun and as menacing as an antagonist for our heroes. And
yeah,
I enjoyed his performance. And yeah, the similarities are obvious and inferior, but I think even a second-rate Heath Ledger Joker is pretty good.
I want to be careful. Go ahead, Andrew.
I was going to say, and I don't want to make people think, or at least for me, I don't think that he was trying to do the Joker. I just
No.
think that's how it came across.
No.
You know, for a lot of people, it's gonna seem that way. But I think that it's a wild, unique character that I think the Fast universe has needed a villain like this to kind of. This is as close the Fast universe is ever going to get to a Thanos. Is this Jason Momoa? You know,
and apparently they're treating it that way too.
Yeah.
You know, like
he snapped his finger at the end.
The parallels to Infinity War are abundant in this picture. The several disparate plot threads with isolated groups of heroes that do not converge or end in any satisfying way at the conclusion of this picture. This big cliffhanger that's going to lead into another movie. Like I am fully expecting a scene in Fast 11 or 12 if they actually do push it out to a full ending trilogy. I am fully expecting a scene where the CGI face of Paul Walker drives through a Doctor Strange portal in a Nissan Skyline and says "on your left" and just comes in at the last minute to rescue the entire. Like I'm expecting a version of that where at the very end of all 35 movies or whatever, they bring back Brian O'Connor at the very last minute to stop Jason Momoa. Like
I am going to put down I would put down a lot of money that Brian O'Connor is going to be in the next one.
I think they'll bring him back. They up until now they just they hang a lot of lampshades in the beginning of each of these movies. It's always like, where's Brian? Home with the kids. Don't worry, he's safe at home. And they're always like sort of hinting at like he's still alive, he's still in this universe, but he's always just off camera, just doing something else. And I feel like they really want to pull that thread and they want to actually put him in the movie.
They're going to.
And I think they will. I really do.
Can I be honest? I'm okay with it.
Me too. And more importantly, his family is, because his daughter, Mia Walker, is in this movie as the flight attendant. She cameos in a very small part. I think it's non-speaking. But it's nice that like her family, or rather Paul Walker's family, is still involved in this franchise. They're still close with the cast and crew. So I suspect that, they're okay with it. The brothers will, body double for him again. And the CGI deep fake technology has come a long way since 2013. So,
yeah. I think there is a real missing piece that he brought to the movies.
Yes.
And I am not beyond wondering how much of my psychological downward trend in the movies is missing. There's almost a gravitas to what he does that still fits the tone of the franchise, but somehow grounded it a little bit. That I think I miss somewhere.
Well, he had that like sort of boyish exuberance that really countered Vin Diesel's sort of grumpy tough guy routine really well. It was like you can't do 48 Hours without Nick Nolte. Like you just have Eddie Murphy then. It's just you needed that balance. Same thing with like Riggs and Murtaugh from Lethal Weapon. You needed the yin to the yang, and without yang, the movies since have all felt a little bit hollow, which is why I'm really fascinated. They never. So I really expected them to slot in Scott Eastwood, who in the 8th movie, here's like this new sort of boyish, younger whippersnapper type that's going to be capable of leading an action scene, and he's handsome and he can. But they kind of regulated him to just a couple scenes here and there in the 8th and I think the 10th movie. But it's like I was really expecting them to just give us another person, another ex-cop, someone like Brian O'Connor to jump into his place. John Cena could have done that, but they didn't really go that route with him either.
Can't see him.
So I mentioned there's a second thing with the Momoa performance that I'm going to wade into very, very carefully and just say I haven't read anybody else say this. I haven't seen this anywhere else. This is coming from me and me alone. Something I became sensitive to in the recent past is the queer coding of villains. In this idea that for a long time in movies, male villains would have effeminate qualities or whatever as a way to code them as queer and to use that to create animosity within the audience. Now, we live in a different world now, and I would much more prefer to talk about Momoa's performance as not being gender stereotyped. In the idea that, he loves ballet and, some of the movements he's making. But I want to be at least alert and aware enough that there are probably some people who are noticing, this looks, again, like a villain who is being coded queer. And so I wanted to bring that up, just kind of wade into it, just to say
could
it's
totally
something
see
I
that.
observed. And it puts me in a place to observe it and go, okay, let's talk about it. Let's discuss it. And I'm sure that was not the intent. I believe that, I guess. I shouldn't say I'm sure. I believe that was not the intent. But there are these natural tendencies when you go big on a performance to do certain things. And I at least wanted to bring that up and mention it.
Are there any gay characters in the entire Fast saga? I feel like there must be, because this is one of, famously and thankfully, one of the most diverse casts of any, like, big budget studio franchise. There's like one white guy in the entire show. And I kind of love that. I honestly kind of love that there's just so much representation from
Right.
every continent and ethnicity. But I'm struggling to remember if there's any gay characters at all, and I feel like that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, not that I can remember, but I could be.
But there's also not a lot of
Isn't Charlize.
Maybe
isn't Charlize's character?
Maybe there's also a lot of there's not a lot of like heteronormative stuff anyway. Like I think Dom and Letty are the only real couple, and everyone else is just sort of there.
Well, Brian,
there's a lot of bromance and stuff like that. And I feel like couples and any sort of sexual energy at all only exists in this franchise so that we can have kids of theirs in the next movie. That's the only reason.
Protect. That's the only reason sex exists in this world is to give them something to protect. Yeah, I think
that's
a valid point.
That's pretty much it. And if it were not for long lost family members, who would we have in this franchise? This movie alone introduced us to Mr. Nobody's heretofore unseen daughter. The villain from Fast 5 apparently has a son that we've never seen before. And also, there's a sister that we've never seen before introduced. And a good deal of this plot also involves around the brother we had never heard before from the last movie. Just every picture, they're just like, here's someone else who's integral to this family, but we've never heard of them until now. I kind of both love and hate that the franchise keeps doing that. They have more resurrections and surprise reveals than like all 58 years of Days of Our Lives. Like this franchise is just, hey, remember this person who died 8 movies ago? Well, good news, they're back again.
Not that I want to use that as a jumping off point for my biggest con with this movie and with this franchise.
Okay.
And it's that it is the absolute, pinnacle of removal of any kind of stakes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Or dread.
No, there's
the immortality syndrome that is going on in this franchise is so ridiculous at this point that I don't care. You can't make me care unless you remove these gutter bouncers, that you have on this franchise.
Right. That's a great way to describe it.
If you can, we knew everybody in Infinity War was going to be coming back, but there were still several character deaths in that movie that we thought were real and that are still real in the Marvel franchise. They're willing to, make those sacrifices. Here we're seeing, characters literally come back from impossible circumstances. And
well, to be fair, the Fast Furious has never shied away from killing off major characters. And it'll land and it'll have some purpose, some emotional effectiveness. And then like 2 or 3 movies later, it's like, you thought Han was dead and this is all a prequel. Turns out he faked his own death and Tokyo Drift was a ruse. And it's like, and then Letty dies in the 4th movie. Then comes back in the 6th movie. And they do that trick a lot. And it's starting to wear out its welcome. And certainly to your point, Andrew, it completely neuters any sense of tension when it's like, well, okay, it looks like he just exploded in a fiery wreck, but did he? I'm not holding my breath either way. So I'm not really worried about him because I'm sure that person's going to be fine in the next film.
But all the franchise leaves me with is seeing cool cars, seeing beautiful people, and family, and hopefully every now and then I'll get a cool a fight scene. But as far as caring about these characters, I can't care about a character if there's no stakes for them.
I understand what you're saying. And personally, it doesn't bother me.
Don't need the steaks.
I don't need them.
He's an action movie vegetarian. Doesn't need the
Yeah.
steaks.
As I've explained, and I've used this analogy, I think every time we've probably reviewed these films, it's junk food. I'm not looking for steak. I'm looking for like a sloppy, greasy burger, and this delivers. This is my cup of tea. This is my Big Mac with cheese. I'm enjoying it every time. Real quick, what for the two of you didn't really like it as much as I did? What is like one standout moment or scene that you really did like?
Oh, let's go with the. There's a sequence where Cypher meets Momoa's character.
Yeah.
It's kind of like our jumping. Well, first off, the beginning of this movie is so good. The beginning of this movie,
Where they recontextualize Fast
where
Five,
they recontextualize Fast Five, is so good.
Yeah.
But
The
then
part
also
of the movie
Cypher
that was
scene.
from a different movie is my favorite part of this movie.
But I will say that as bad as they are about resurrecting characters and like long lost relatives and all those soap opera tropes, the Fast Furious franchise has always been really good, and I genuinely mean this, at retconning old events in a way that recontextualizes them and strengthens that. Like Tokyo Drift, when it first came out, was a totally disconnected spinoff, and then retroactively they like tied it back into the grand sort of story in such a great way. And they've gone back to Fast Five and like, well, what if this was also a setup for this movie? And they constantly go back and like reweave things in a way that I've never seen other franchises do to that level of, effectiveness.
Yeah.
Is that your pick too, Andrew? Just the prologue is your favorite moment?
Oh, the prologue is great, but also that scene where Cypher meets Momoa's character, and he just establishes himself. I guess I'll say it was a very well shot scene. I love that room they were in. Just it felt intimidating for sure. It was tense.
He drops, I think, my favorite line of the film where he says, "You want to control the world. I just want to punish it." And it's like, that sounds bad. I like this guy. He's good.
Yeah, he's definitely doing his audition for Lobo in this movie. Which, Momoa said that he's going to play somebody new in the DC universe for the new, and I hope it's Lobo. So.
I don't think I could come up with. There are bits and pieces of everything that I go, oh, that was fun to see. But it just,
There's some stuff at the end with helicopters. Did that do anything for you?
Oh, I hated it.
Yeah, no,
that's rolled my eyes, but
I thought that was great. I was like, yes, this looks so cool. I was all about it. I
don't know. There's something weird too. That's happening.
There's eye candy. There's an eye candy value to it.
Sure, but
nothing that I haven't seen them do a trillion times before.
This is what I was just about to say. Is that there's something about action movies today where we've kind of gotten everything we ever wanted, and so like there's everything's. I get it. We've always known movies are fake, right? But you also know everything can just be like, put into a computer and spit out on screen. And so at some point it's just like, I don't know, like we are so close to the days where I just look at my computer and go, hey, make me a movie that has this, and this, starring these people, this person, and these people, and ends like this. And then I can just watch that movie. You know what I mean? Right. So it just becomes noise at some point.
I think that's a big reason why we're seeing a sort of trend towards movies like John Wick, for lack of anything else, because people are attracted more now to this realistic, grounded, authentic stunt work that is really happening on set. And I think people are appreciating that more now in the advent of all this like CGI just muckery and brown sludge that we get in Marvel movies. It's like, we actually just want to see real people in real situations do cool things. The trick is, how do you do that safely, and how do you do it in a way no one's ever done before? And it's
I understand what you're saying, but I don't believe that there's much difference between what the brain does with something that is fake and what it does with something that is real. And there certainly won't be 5 to 10 years from now, right? Like we will get to the point where action is just whatever they want it to be, and you won't actually have to have stunt actors and those kind of things. To me, if it doesn't result in a gravity, in a movement back towards story, I will be very surprised. I think story is king. Story's always been king. Story will always be king. And it's just, the story is so on the surface, and I'm ready. I'm ready to
So is it?
think
So
about
is the
stuff
action
again.
genre for you? Is the action genre for you just completely sort of past its prime, dead and dusted, with the exception of Tom Cruise?
Well, one of the beautiful things about the Cruise movies, usually like the Mission Impossibles, and even Top Gun, is they're good storytelling. Like
Yeah.
this is what I'm saying. Like when it's in
Right.
service of
That's what that was my
a good
point too. Is
story.
that
Yeah.
those are always not only great
Yeah.
action, but they're always directly in service of a great story. We mentioned the Burj
Right.
Khalifa sequence in our pre-show from Ghost Protocol, and yeah, it's awesome that he's hanging on the outside of the tallest building in the world. But there's a very clear, consequence. There's a very clear, ticking clock factor to it.
Motivation. Yeah.
And it's not just we want to go on the outside of the building because it's cool. It's we have to sneak in from here. They establish it in a way that makes sense. It's painted as like this is the only way to do
Right.
this.
Right.
And in most of the Fast franchise, I don't think that's not the only way to stop a car or stop a bomb, but that's the way they decide to do it.
Yeah, I'm ready. And I always have been more apt to be ready for a movie that instead of saying turn off your brain, says you better not turn off your brain because you're going to miss stuff.
I like that. That's pretty good.
So that's always going to be my preference. Yeah.
I saved my turning off your brain for reality TV. But okay, so I think for me personally, my favorite Fast and the Furious movie is the first one, the Fast and the Furious, and I think it's because even though it's Point Break, it has the best story out of any of the movies.
Mhm.
A lot
And
of
it's
people
certainly
say
like the
Fast
most
5.
layered and complex because there's like
it's the purest.
duality and identity and there's a lot going on there.
Yeah,
Not so much
And like I
anymore.
said, even though it's Point Break with cars, I mean, Point Break was a great story.
Point Break's
you
a
know?
great film. No
It's a
reason,
great
no
movie.
reason not to love it.
My favorite. Okay, you know what? I take it back. My favorite Fast and Furious movie is Point Break.
Point Break.
Yeah.
That's the thing, right? Like it doesn't even have to be a brand new story. Tell me a story I already know, but tell it to me again in a different way. Like that's okay.
A story.
Yeah, just like I love Avatar. So what that it's Pocahontas and Fern Gully or whatever.
Yeah.
Like it's a story that I can connect to. It's not just beautiful blue people. There's actually really interesting human relationship dynamic things going on there. So yeah, that's a long way of just saying, tell me a story. Don't just show me a cool picture.
Yeah.
We'll do both. Why not both sometimes?
I feel like we got really kind of high level esoteric on this one.
Well,
More
That's
so than
what
I
the
thought
Fast
we might.
franchise does. It brings out this.
I love that it. I love that it.
Critical thinking.
Yeah, I love that it inspires such critical cinematic debate on the sort of ethos of the entire genre up until this point in history. With that said, any final thoughts on worst moment, best moment, things you wanted to see, or
One
things we
mid-credit
didn't need to
scene.
see?
Yeah, there's one mid-credit scene.
It's a good one.
It's a good one. It's an interesting one. It's one I'm really curious about going forward because it's certainly one that if you paid attention to the news, you wouldn't expect. And so that'll be interesting going forward. I actually, if you ask me, one of the things I liked about the movie, I actually think the fan service in this movie is done really well. And what I mean by that is it understands not just what the fans want, but it understands the resources it has to give it to them. And so to think of all the different ways that the history of this franchise was used in this single movie is actually pretty impressive.
They make callbacks and they're pulling characters from movies 5, 6, 7, 8. Like anyone who's ever been in any of the movies sort of ties back into this one at some point. So actually, a final question for both of you. Are you looking forward to the next one?
Yeah, actually.
Yeah, I'm not. Okay. I think I tweeted something about this. I'm looking forward to good storytellers versions of the next one. Maybe. I like the idea of this being the end of this franchise and then being a writing prompt for future generations to finish the story. In fun and exciting, interesting ways.
Yeah. Dom leaves off here.
Because the next one's going to be just as dumb as this one. Like, it's like, I just, whatever.
I want to reiterate. I want to reiterate. I liked one thing about this movie. It was enough for me to say I liked the movie. But this is, to me, I don't think this is a good movie. It's not a good movie. I just liked something about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to our next movie that is here to change the face of cinema. Let's talk about Hypnotic. A detective becomes entangled in a mystery involving his missing daughter in a secret government program while investigating a string of reality-bending crimes. You hear about movies being dumped. Well, let me introduce you to one. Hypnotic was dumped into theaters this weekend. Nobody knew about it. Actually, it was dumped on Wednesday, I think, is when it actually came out.
Which never happens.
It's strange considering it's Robert Rodriguez, who is certainly a filmmaker that has done some respected work. It has Ben Affleck, another actor who has done some
plenty of
respected
cachet.
work.
He should be in a higher profile movie than this.
And not only that, I think William Fichtner is worth mentioning.
Absolutely.
Has done a lot of great work. And yet this movie comes out with a complete silence. And do you understand why after watching it? Did you like it, love it, dislike it, hate it, or it was just okay? Andrew, kick us off.
Loved it.
Ooh,
Really?
No, see, you guys think I said loved it, but I really hated it.
Oh,
Yeah, I really hated this movie.
okay.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna have to have you explain that one.
So you hated it. You were just playing.
I hated it. I
was
just hypnotized you.
I was excited to hear why you loved this movie. John, what about you? Liked it, loved it, disliked it, hated it, or was just okay?
It was just okay.
I'm firmly in disliked it, which is interesting because I think I started maybe the first 20, 25 minutes thinking, oh, I'm actually going to like this movie that they completely dumped into theaters.
I went the other way with it, actually. It was after the halfway mark where I was like, oh, this movie's taking some swings. I kind of appreciate this movie's just absolutely does
but
not
it's
care.
completely missing. It's taking swings, sure, but it strikes out.
Oh, yeah, I would agree. But there's it's going to be hard to discuss this movie because it does take such a dramatic shift.
So let's do this. I would like each of us to give our general thoughts on the movie.
Sure.
And I've been thinking about this since finishing the movie. Instead of doing a sift swift, which would, or not sift swift, a sift spoil, which would basically be us talking for 3 minutes here and then, doing 30 minutes of spoilers. We're just going to do it in the episode. And so each of us take a little bit of time to give general thoughts. I will give you a spoiler warning, and then we're just not going to worry about it. We're going to talk about spoilers with Hypnotic. The reason being, I think the movie needs it to have any kind of coherent conversation about it.
It's still not going to be that coherent of a conversation here.
Okay, fair enough. So let's see. Who ended up liking it the most? Was it? It was.
I think
you.
it was
me again.
Yeah,
John.
So some general thoughts before we spoil.
I mean, these
number
are
one movie of the year, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I think we're talking about why we liked it. All right, so I'll skip over the fact that Ben Affleck looks like he's asleep for most of it. It's confidently shot. It seems.
Wait, Sean, he is asleep. Never mind. Sorry. We'll talk about that later. Continue.
I feel like it's competently shot. It's cribbing heavily from a bunch of other ideas and a bunch of other pictures. But I kind of like some of the concepts they're using where it's like a kidnap mystery bank heist movie, but hypnosis is the power that the criminals use to, I don't know, get around obstacles. I kind of like that concept. I don't know that it was used to any believability here. Everything is a bit silly. But individual moments here and there, individual action beats seem to work pretty well. And I like some of the world building that we get into later on the movie that I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of interesting. This concept, these people, this like society of hypnotics, that's kind of neat. I haven't seen that before. And ultimately a big reason why I like the movie is, I guess we'll talk about during the spoiler section.
I can go second with some general thoughts. Like I mentioned, I think this movie starts out with some interesting conceits and concepts. In a general sense, I will just say the movie takes what is interesting about its world and expands it to the place where it completely neuters any ability to mean anything by the end. And it happens pretty quickly once it happens. Like there's a real, pardon the reference, domino effect that happens with some revelations that I just think completely ruins the movie. The only reason I'm in didn't liked it and not hated it is because I really do think those first 20 to 25 minutes put us in a world that is interesting and put us in a place where we're curious to know more about. Unfortunately, when the movie decides to tell us more about it, I do think it completely
It ain't
destroys.
good.
Yeah, I think it completely destroys our ability to really buy into it. Andrew, some general thoughts?
Oh, you just need to call this movie Chubby Checker the movie because it's twisting this way and that, man. It's I'm glad at
And
least
there's
one
some
person
shouting,
got that
so,
reference.
yeah.
And there is some shouting, yeah. So yeah, I decided about halfway through this movie because there's so many twists here and there, just constantly coming. I said, I'll just keep my eyes open looking at the screen until the credits roll, and then the last thing that happened is the thing I'm supposed to care about.
That's not a bad way to do it. Actually.
Yeah, that's fair.
You're cheating, but that counts. I'll allow it.
Like I follow, like I was probably still more awake than Ben Affleck was. Like I was trying, like if you want to give Ben Affleck a Razzie for a performance, do it for this movie as opposed to The Last Duel, because this
Also, he was
isn't
great
acting.
in
This
Air.
is just walking on set. Yeah, and he's really good in The Last Duel. So yeah, this is the one where he's just shockingly boring.
I do think there's some intention
I don't know
there.
who plays his partner. The guy who plays his partner is a complete.
I don't even know if I'd categorize his performance as. Luckily he's not in the movie for very long.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you talking about JD Pardo, the Knicks character?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Really bad.
There's a scene with that character, and I don't think this is spoilers, so I'll go ahead and say it here, where I realized the conceit of this movie has already been done perfectly already with David Tennant in the Marvel show. What's the character? Jessica Jones. Jessica Jones handles this idea in that character, which I think is a Marvel supervillain, which I
Kilgrave. Yeah.
Kilgrave. This movie is Kilgrave, right? Like this movie is about that idea of, you know, a very similar feel of controlling people just by, you know, changing what they believe or their world. And I was reminded of that in a scene where his partner is trying to escape, and I was just like, oh, I've seen this done better. And from then on out, I was just, every time something would happen, I'd be like, oh yeah, that was much more deep and interesting when I saw it in Inception, and that was much more deep and interesting when I, you know, saw it in such and such. And it's jumping around from thing to thing that way. So yeah. We've been tiptoeing around. We can stop tiptoeing. Just so you know, spoiler alert. I should have like a little button I can push. Except we don't usually do this during the show.
Yeah. You should have hit the Trump button.
No, I should not.
You're trumping the non-spoilers.
But the rest of this conversation will be with the spoiler governors off. So feel free to talk about the multiple twists in this movie.
I'm just shaking my head with just, you know, disbelief at how absurd the last act of this movie is. So the big spoiler is that an hour into this 90-minute picture, it's revealed that everything we've seen so far has been a construct. It's in his mind. The entire first hour of the movie, not some of it, not portions of it, the entire thing was fake. And I was just like, I was floored with this revelation because I was like, that's so stupid. But also I kind of love that they're throwing everything we've already seen out the window and rebuilding from scratch 2/3 of the way through. Movies don't do that because it's stupid. And I kind of appreciated that this movie went for that. Like, it wasn't trying to hold back or anything. It's like, no, let's just take an absolute swing for the fences here and reset everything. The bad guy's now the good guy. The good guy is apparently also the bad guy. Like, crazy stuff. And I kind of loved how crazy it was, even though it ruins the movie.
I was trying to put my finger on why it ruins the movie. And I think for me, it comes down to a quote from The Incredibles, which is, if everyone's special, no one is.
Yes.
And there's the thing that this movie does where every single character has this ability in big ways. And so you're just left never knowing what's real. And the movie thinks it's using that to its advantage, and all it's doing is making nothing we see interesting because
it's cutting its own legs off.
Who knows? Yeah, in that power in the movie. And I'm going to skip to the very end, the mid-credit scene. I can't remember that. Reveals that William Fichtner's still alive, and that he had somehow, I guess, out hypno-powered the little girl who supposedly so in that moment completely neuters any of the final act, in what we're supposed to believe about what's going on, because the movie needs this guy for a possible sequel. The movie is so focused on what it believes is an ability that it doesn't realize that it's being a hindrance. And
I think it took you a minute to articulate it, but I think that's really it. Is the hypnotism should be this really exciting sort of ability or trick that the movie plays on the audience, much in the way that good magic related films or mind related films like Inception or Prestige really nail that, right? They pull the trick on the audience by sort of sleight of hand or whatever. This movie's like, what if it was all fake? What if that was all fake too? What if this is all fake? You don't know. And
you know what movie did it right?
What's that?
Spider-Man: Far From Home with Mysterio.
Yeah, there was some great sequences in that, for sure.
Sure.
But what was nice about that is that was individual moments, right?
It wasn't used sparingly.
Right, and it wasn't. We're not going to erase
one character with the power. It wasn't every single character having that power, And
he only erased like a scene, not an entire first act. There's a moment at the end of the movie where all the bad guys are getting wasted by the good guys, and then William Fichtner just yells out with all this like doubt and incredulity. He's like, "We're in a construct," and it's like, dude, you're a hypnotist. Your whole thing is building constructs. This never occurred to you. And it's so silly. It's such a silly moment.
So are blockers not a real thing?
What was that?
So are blockers not a real thing?
Yeah, I don't know. It's so goofy.
Because they kept saying
in what way?
Like mental.
Well, they kept saying mental blockers, like that people that could stop the Hypnotic's abilities. But then they said that Ben Affleck, you must be a very powerful blocker. Maybe that's why he's going after you, because he can try and hypnotize you, but he can't. But then halfway through the movie, he starts hypnotizing him. And I'm like, I guess he's not that powerful of a blocker, huh? So yeah, I don't know why I'm getting into details with this movie that I don't.
Yeah, that was a dumb moment too, where before we know Ben Affleck's abilities, he just hypnotizes William Fichtner, and it's just sort of like, I didn't know I could do that, and it's like, well, this is dumb. Can everybody do it? This is pointless now. It only works.
Like the John Wick universe. Everybody's an assassin,
right? And yet, like you said, Aaron, if everyone's special, nobody is. And at that moment, I was like, oh, if he has the power too, and it's just like some latent thing he needs to unlock, well, this is stupid. It was more interesting when you had one savant on his team and they had to go against other people and you couldn't know what was real or fake. And then everything's fake. Nothing matters. And let's all go home. It was dumb.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So no chance there will be a sequel to this, because I can't imagine this makes any money. I think it opened in 8th place.
Is there a chance it's a cult hit? Like, is there a chance people pick up on this because of how bad it is, even, or just
I do want to stress for the folks on the podcast listening, they're box office nerds like myself. Not only did it open in 8th place, it opened wide to thousands of theaters and got less than
That was 2,000 theaters was in the contract. That's the only reason they put it in 2,000 theaters is because
That's
there
a
was a
lot
think
of
they
contract.
were
theaters.
in the
That
editing
is a
bay and they're
bunch.
looking at this movie and they're going, you know what? It's not a good movie. Yeah, but we had Ben Affleck and Robert Rodriguez do it. We kind of have to put it out, don't we?
Oh yeah,
Do
this
we?
this this guy this
Yeah.
opened in 2,100 theaters and made
Mhm.
2.4 million. That is terrible. That
Yeah.
is an awful opening.
No, you know what that is? That's a lot of critics having to go to see this movie.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it early on, but Aaron, had you not said this is our second movie this week, I would not have heard this existed. I would not have wasted my time on. I might have caught it on digital or streaming a few months from now and been like, oh, Ben Affleck and William Fichtner. I like those guys in Armageddon. What are they up to today? Oh, this. Okay.
Oh my gosh, I forgot they were in Armageddon together.
Together they were, yeah. And I just throw us a bone, fellas. Just one little Armageddon reference would have really saved a good deal of this picture. Just one little movie.
Weirdly, I'm glad I saw it. But I'm that way with most movies,
Yes.
even ones I don't like. Like there's something fascinating about a movie like this that I'm glad that I have that information. Maybe it's my curiosity, whatever it is. But it's just so difficult to come out of a movie like this where there was a portion of time towards the beginning where you're like, oh, this might be good. And then it is so bad. It gets so bad.
Yeah.
And also,
What a dumb movie.
can I just say, the daughter, the most powerful, hypnotic ever
Killed
conceived,
so many people.
because she is the daughter of two hypnotics, which that's all it takes. That's how genetics works. But she's the daughter of two hypnotics, so she's the most powerful hypnotic to see. Here's the question. Are we supposed to believe that William Fichtner was right at the end of this movie?
Oh, that is a good question.
Are we supposed to be rooting for Ben Affleck and family?
I mean, we're supposed to root for Ben because he's
Because that's not what I saw on screen. What I saw on screen was a psycho child. And what I saw on screen was exactly what William Fichtner was worried about.
This is untapped power that needs to be controlled and regulated. And it's like, well, I guess they're a family, though. Yeah. Also, they just laid waste to 45 FBI agents or whatever. Like they didn't even, blink at it. It was, that kind of power is a little disturbing, and they don't make. There's no like moral quandary addressed. It's just, we had to kill all those people, or did they kill them? Was that all just an illusion to somebody else?
I was gonna say, you can make people see any world you want. Your only choice is to murder them. That like you've got this power where you can just make them believe they're in prison, in an inescapable prison or whatever. Like it's so weird.
And then Ben Affleck and the mother, they're just looking at her like, "Good job, honey.
Good job.
You murdered her.
It is curious.
Murdered more people."
Girl power.
Aaron,
Yeah.
I know you like to find best ever challenges every week that connect the two films, and perhaps this week's theme should have been children murdering, because that also kind of irked me a bit in Fast 10. Dom's
absolutely.
kid at one point definitely murders a couple of cars of people, and he's like, "Yeah, go." It's like, what? This
I don't
kid's
know
like
who.
6.
That's why at the beginning of this podcast, whenever I did the patrons get those perks, I said, these kids killed so many people.
They did. It's kind of screwed up. To your point earlier, Aaron, I think it is worth pointing out. I'm a firm believer that all movies have value, like the worst, terrible, whatever. So to that end, was there any moment in this picture that you guys did like? Was there a single individual little reveal or twist or thing that
I really enjoyed?
The very
I really
first
enjoyed the
sequence
first
with
bank
the
heist.
therapist.
I really enjoyed. I thought that was blocked really well. I thought that was really interesting. I'm sure I've seen something like it before, but I thought the part of him like beating them to the safe deposit box was interesting and clever. And
I kind of loved the idea that in an unseen prologue, William Fichtner would have gone around the bank, gone to the teller, hypnotized her. I'll be back next week, and when I say this word, you'll do this. You'll set off my plan in motion. Right. And I like that he would have had to have done a lot of planning, done a lot of hypnosis ahead of time, so that when he shows up at the bank, he can just drop his little code word triggers, and they open the doors for him. He goes in. I like that. But then the movie undoes it because everything we
completely
saw
undoes it. And you know how ridiculous it is to, like, first of all, why do you need to act it out? Why are we acting anything out? Why is there a bank structure and
that part
cars?
was kind of,
why is he getting in and out of a golf cart?
no,
and,
that was so silly. And they really redo the entire the first 10 minutes of the movie. We see twice. It wasn't just like, here's a couple quick shots so you understand the conceit. Let's rewind the entire movie and re-show it to you from a different perspective, just in case you were really dumb and didn't get it.
And the movie, unless I missed it, never in any way hints or explains as to why he was able not to have his brain wiped the last time. Why was he able to fight back and drive away in the truck the first time? The last time.
It is not
13's the charm.
It was not explained. It was dumb.
So yeah,
we need to move on.
I think we do. I think we absolutely need to move on from this movie that I'm not sure actually exists. All right, before we head into the best ever challenge, I do want to thank our amazing Sif Pop members. Thank you so much. We like to do a fun little pre-show for you. Andrew has been hosting those. We had a lot of fun talking about car experiences in the show as well as other things. So if you want to check that out, support starts at $3 a month. You can check out all the details at patreon.com/SifPop. And thanks for doing so. All right, best ever challenge, as mentioned, best ever movies ending in C or X will go number 5 to number 1. If somebody has it higher,
Trump!
It gets trumped. All right, starting with number 5, I'll kick us off and probably get trumped, I'm guessing. I have Zodiac at number 5. Either you're going to trump me on that? No?
First honorable mention.
All right. That's
good.
surprising. It's so very good.
I need to rewatch it. I don't remember liking it, but I was young.
Interesting.
I was young.
What's your general feeling on Fincher in general? Like, do you usually?
I usually really like it, which is why I think that might have been my first Fincher film, though, and I think I've probably warmed on his style as I've matured. Because I would have seen this when it came out when I was like 20, and it's a lot different from being 37. So I'm going to check it out.
This is 7 without the gratuitous violence, I think.
Yeah.
It's it's interesting. He did the Netflix show as well, which Mindhunter, is it Mindhunter? Yeah, I think it's Mindhunter. And Mindhunter reminds me of Zodiac a lot.
Yeah.
And Jonathan Groff is amazing in it. If you haven't checked out Mindhunter, you should do that before it disappears, because apparently streaming services are just taking everything off streaming services.
That could be a deal we care.
How do I'm sorry, I have to say this. How do these content providers and owners of IP not realize that all they are doing is pushing more and more people to a world that's very easy to find their content elsewhere? Like, how do they not understand that the issue is not the money they have to pay to creators who have created a project for them if they leave it on the service? It's the money they lose because people are like, okay, I won't subscribe to you, I'll just go torrent it. Like, how do they not understand this? Like, the music industry,
illegal, Aaron.
But the music industry almost died because of this. And many people could say it kind of did. Like, musicians, if they don't do sell out concerts, like, it's hard to be a musician right now. Like,
and what saved the music industry?
Well, I mean, I would say
Spotify. Right? No, I'm being serious. Spotify kind of saved it because it's like, well, you want every song easily accessible with super convenience? We'll give it to you for $12 a month. Right now, the streaming video platforms have the option to do that too, but instead they're like, no, let's make it as hard and as complicated and as disparate as we can. And it's like, guys, if you keep removing things from your platform and not offering them elsewhere or on physical media, of course you're going to drive more people to piracy. Like, it's frustrating to see them make bad decisions after bad. And when we we already saw it with music, and that's not the answer.
Yeah.
The answer is more accessibility and easier accessibility.
So go check out Mindhunter on Netflix before it disappears. Zodiac is amazing. All right, what is your number 5, John?
I have Rumble in the Bronx, famously and hilariously filmed in Vancouver. One of Jackie Chan's best early English.
It is my favorite
efforts.
Jackie Chan movie.
It is so much fun. I mean, that's the case of any Jackie Chan movie, but I think this was one of my earlier sort of access points for him in like his pre-America cinema before he did Rush Hour and stuff. And this is just such a fun movie. He does more than anybody. He combines comedy with action in a way that's never takes itself seriously, but always impresses because it's like, oh no, this guy's really doing it. He's really jumping off this car or through this fence or whatever. And yeah,
he was Tom Cruise before Tom Cruise.
Indeed.
No, he was Buster Keaton on
after
steroids.
Buster Keaton.
Yeah, right. Buster, Jackie, Tom. I get it. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Andrew, what is your number 5?
I have Captain Fantastic at my number 5.
It's a great movie.
Honorable mention for me.
Yeah, honorable mention for me as well.
Matt Ross directed this. We know him from American Psycho. He was in what was that HBO show about Silicon Valley? He was in Silicon Valley, but he directed this. Viggo Mortensen and actually a girl who was in my acting class was in this movie. Annalise Basso was one of his children. Yeah. She did a fantastic job. If you remember from the movie, she was the one who fell off the roof at the end and got really messed up. But George McKay, this is one of his first films. It's just such a brilliant story about allowing your children not to be, corrupted, I guess, by modern conveniences and inconveniences.
It's a nice little wholesome family piece that doesn't conform to like the rules of society. It's a very sort of progressive look at what families and parenthood can be. And I also feel like it's only a few years old, but I feel like a lot of people maybe haven't heard of it or didn't see it. Yeah. I don't get the sense that it made big waves when it came out in 2016. So yeah, Captain Fantastic. I think it got some awards buzz that year, but it didn't win.
Viggo did.
It didn't win a lot, so I feel like people might have not heard of this one, but that's a great one to revisit.
Yep, I agree.
I highly recommend this movie. It's
Aaron, what do you have at number 4?
My number 4 is not a surprise that I would have it on my list. Monsters, Inc.
Me too.
Comes in at my number 4.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a real good one.
You said, Andrew, you're number 4 as well?
Uh-huh.
Very nice. I did debate whether or not the period at the end of Inc. Is a character or a letter. But...
You know what? I have all my movies in a spreadsheet, as you guys know, and I literally just did a filter. Movies, text ends with X, and then it brought up whatever 45 results. Text ends in C, and I went through those. This didn't show up because of that period.
Yes,
and it I don't know if it would have made my top 5, but I just rewatched it with my youngest. She's 3, and she adored it.
It's so good.
It's so fun watching movies like this with 3-year-old people because they just like the big blue guy and they're just excited about Sully. And when Mike Wazowski like just falls on his face, like that's what gets them. And I'm connecting obviously to the deeper themes going on. But
when he shows his splintered hands at the just every time. Pixar, why do you do it to me? Monsters Inc. is great. Andrew, what were some of your thoughts?
Same. It's a beautiful movie. It's old enough now that I think people are forgetting about it, and they really shouldn't. It's good.
Yep. John, what's your number 4?
My number 4 is the Justice League Flashpoint Paradox. This was an animated film from the DC EAU.
E
Every movie you say, Andrew's like, I forgot about that one.
This wouldn't have made my top 5, but yeah, it's my favorite DC animated film.
This is from 2013, and I don't know if people know this, but the DC animated universe is like 65 films deep at this point, and they only started, I think, in 2009. Like they're just cranking these out, but this, I think, was the high water mark, certainly of like the first 5 years or so, because it is the culmination of like all these different characters, all these different threads, and this big, epic, grand feature-length story. I think up until then, actually, I guess it's not feature-length; it's only like 80 minutes, so it's shorter than like a live-action version might be. But I don't know, this story, which we got a little bit in Zack Snyder's Justice League, and I think we'll get more of in The Flash this summer. It's an epic story. It's such a cool concept. And seeing all these characters just utilized at their absolute best, it's great. I slept on the animated stuff for too long, and if you're listening and you haven't seen them, don't do that. Go check them out.
Don't
There
be
are
like me.
there's some DC animated films that are better than the Marvel movies.
Oh, 100%. I would put
Yeah.
if you just took all the comic movies ever, the Flashpoint Paradox for me is probably like a top 10. Like it is so good.
It's ridiculously good.
Better than most of the live actions.
They just had DC animated. I don't know how caught up you are on those films, but
I got like 8 left.
The Apocalypse War ones, like the Justice League Dark ones, you can think of
those
those as a Flashpoint 2.0.
Yep.
When you get to those.
All right, number 3s. I'll kick us off with a classic. I have The Sound of Music at number 3. I love
do too.
Oh, nice. Look at us sharing picks.
Yay.
I think this movie is not just one of the greatest musicals of all time, but one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes.
Julie Andrews is astonishing in this movie. Just an absolute.
So is Chris Plummer, for that matter. They're doing excellent stuff here.
It's also so impressive to have a movie that features this many children actors and it still somehow works. I love so much about Sound of Music. John, what else would you say about it?
I think a lot of people probably have trouble getting into a 3.5-hour musical from the 1950s, but I promise you it is worth the effort if you haven't seen it before. Just there's such a great mix of music and romance, and then all against the backdrop of pre-war Austria. The music alone, just if you just listen to the soundtrack, they're all bangers. But I think there's something about that like wide Vista Vision, Austrian hilltop cinematography that is just. I love those old Technicolor films from the 50s. Those vibrant like greens and blues pop off the screen, and Julie Andrews is just like a vision in all of them. It's a fun movie. It's a good family movie. I'm probably going to introduce it to my girls probably this summer. I think they're just about ready, maybe the 5-year-old anyway, to get most of the film. It's great. It's one of the best musicals.
And Phil in the comments has a good point. In Sound of Music, the children aren't murdering Nazis.
Yes,
so
they don't, or flipping cars or hypnotizing anybody.
Anything. Andrew, what is your number 3?
Titanic.
Trump. Where's the button? Press the button.
The button's not working. Why isn't the button working? Where's the button?
Trump.
That's weird.
There you go.
Yes, that will be trumped. On to our number 2s. Titanic at number 2.
I'll trump that one more.
Take
All right, John, what do you got at number 2?
I think this is probably going to be Andrew's number 1. This is where I have The Matrix.
Yeah.
Andrew, what do you have at number 2?
American History X.
Yeah, that's an honorable mentions.
Mention from me as well. That was a good one.
What a happy frolic of a movie.
I was going to say, Sound of Music. This is not. This is a very.
What are you talking about, man? That curb stomping scene. That reminded me of a.
I like physically like jumped and like I don't know what's the word, just cowered after that. I was like, oh my gosh, like I just winced. Like
you curled up in the fetal position.
Oh yeah, that the opening of this movie, that's rough.
It's an understatement. Yes.
Yeah.
It's a movie that I just recently rewatched it, and I had what I thought was an interesting thought anyway. At the end of it, do you guys think he went back to his life, back to the neo-Nazi fold after his brother was killed?
I don't know. I don't think so. That wasn't my interpretation, but it's been a bit since I've seen it, so I couldn't remember.
Yeah,
great film.
It
tackles a lot of really tough stuff. But I think it's one of those. It's an important movie. It's the kind of movie your teacher probably made you watch in high school, and you were like, "Yeah, okay."
Yep.
But if you give it the time and you kind of allow yourself to, I don't know, appreciate such tough subject matter, it is very powerful.
Oh yeah.
Film.
Mm-hmm.
My social studies class was in for a rude awakening whenever we thought we were going to get a fun day watching a movie.
So you did I don't think I did, but it seems like the type of movie you would.
We had to sign a waiver. I remember signing a waiver for this. We also signed a waiver for Saving Private Ryan, And there was one other movie that
also,
they made.
Also not a great movie to watch as a teen, but hey, you got to grow up sometime.
Yeah.
I don't know. The kids in the movies are just murdering people. I don't just, why wait till you're a teenager?
Number one's now.
Number one's now, and I'll kick us off with I believe Andrew and I's number one, which is The Matrix.
Matrix.
And we've talked about it plenty of times on the show before. Not a lot to revisit. I will say that there's a conversation to be had that I've wanted to have in podcast form for a while, and maybe someday this topic will be a full Swift or something. But seismic movies, movies that absolutely changed film. The Matrix is one of them in that conversation. It absolutely changed the idea of what an action movie could be, especially for a U.S. audience.
This sort of took the marriage of visual effects, high concept storytelling, and like really, original, brilliant screenplays from unproven auteurs, blended them all together, and it was a blockbuster smash. That kind of thing happens like once a generation, and The Matrix was, seismic is a good word for it.
Mm-hmm.
Andrew, some thoughts from you?
I actually just watched it last night after making this list, and I needed a good movie to talk about. Like, I had two movies that I just left the theater going.
Hypnotic didn't do it for you?
Hypnotic didn't do it for me, man. So I got transported. I realized that there was a glitch in the Matrix, and that the movie's getting churned out by Hollywood right now.
I mean, The Matrix is another movie that's done the hypnotic thing better than Hypnotic does.
Right, with
you know what I mean?
The concept of constructs and fake realities.
Mm-hmm.
Except when The Matrix sort of pulls the wool over your eyes and it's like, hey, everything you just saw was fake. It's, oh my gosh, that's an incredible twist. In Hypnotic, it's like, oh my gosh, that's so stupid. Same idea where everything we've seen up until now is fake, and it's all part of. And what I love the trick of The Matrix is getting us to believe our reality outside the movie might also be fake, and it's like, whoa, that's the ultimate. Like, maybe I had too many edibles before watching this, because that is a trick where you think,
oh man,
everything's fake.
I just wasted a rewatch, I'm realizing.
All right. So let's talk about
John, your number
one, John.
Which I think you had at 3, Andrew, and Aaron at 2. Titanic, it goes without saying, this movie's a masterpiece. I love it. I watched it for the re-release, which I guess was the 25th re-release a few months ago in theaters. And it was like experiencing it all over again for the first time. And it's incredible. A movie I've seen 9 or 10 times now. It still makes me cry, still makes me cheer, still makes me like, it is like, wow, I don't know how Jim Cameron does it, but he's got my wavelength, because the last 8 movies of his in a row, I'm just wowed by.
Yeah.
And I think it was popular for a minute in the early 2000s for people like me of a certain age to hate on Titanic. It was a chick flick. It was a girl's movie. But I think in any objective estimation, it's very hard to argue this is not a brilliant 3-hour movie.
No, I remember the pattern of doubting Jim delivering, Jim makes movie that makes all the money in the world started with Titanic in a lot
Because
ways.
it was like, what do you mean you're good at what are you doing with $300 million?
How is it going to be interesting? Everybody knows what happens. Like, you're spending how much money on this? What are you doing in the water tank? Like, and then I went and saw it, and then I went back and saw it again, and then I went back and saw it again, and I think I saw this movie in theaters 4 or 5 times.
It's the only movie I've seen 5 times in 5 different years. 97, 98, 2004, 2012, and 2023.
Nice.
Just crazy that it's been released that many times too.
Yes, I think I saw it 5 times in 98 or 97 even.
Titanic is the Skyrim of video games. They just keep re-releasing it.
A bit. Skyrim's a good game though, so it's not a bad comparison.
Yeah.
I am pumped for the digital release, the 4K HFR stuff that he's doing with some of his older movies. I'm really, really excited to see. So yeah, I'm a big Titanic fan. Andrew, did you want to talk about it at all?
It's a beautiful love story that I think whenever I initially first saw it, I didn't appreciate it, mainly because how old were we, John? 13, 14, somewhere around there when this movie came out?
I was 11. I was 11 when it came out.
Yeah. So yeah, but you know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah, we were
it's a
11,
love
guys.
story.
We were like 11 when this came out.
Yeah,
yeah.
All of us
Yeah,
were
we
11.
all 11. But but it's something that, you know, whenever you're a kid of that age, you might not appreciate at the time, and you just want to get to the big boat sinking. But then you don't realize that what makes the tragedy of the big boat sinking is that there were people on it. Yeah, the connection to the people that were on it. And yes, Jack and Rose are made up, but their representation, their love is a representation. It's like what was shared between everybody that was real.
Right. I mean, there's the great line from Bill Paxton at the end where he says, I never let it in. I never got it until now. And I was a huge Titanic buff as a kid in the 90s, as I think a lot of us were. And I had watched documentaries, read books, seen, all sorts of things about it.
You should come see the museum in Branson here.
I've seen the exhibit in Las Vegas, which I don't know if that's comparable or not, but it was impressive. But then when I saw the movie, I finally
the Titanic here in Branson.
That's unnecessary. You don't.
But cool.
when I finally saw the movie, though, it's like, oh, I'm finally connecting to like the human tragedy, not just like the structural story of like how does a ship physically sink. Like, that's interesting, but the human condition behind everything is like, oh wow, that's actually quite powerful.
Yep.
Hey John, I'm gonna say one line from it, and I want you to know if you know what I'm talking about. That really sucks, lady.
Yes,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's Louis Abernathy's line at the end of the movie where she throws the deleted scene.
It's the deleted alternate
Gloria
ending that
Stewart,
is so bad.
Where Gloria Stewart throws the heart of the ocean into the ocean, and Louis sees it, and he's like, "Oh my god, that really sucks!
That really sucks, lady."
Oh my god! If you have not seen the deleted ending of Titanic, check it out on YouTube.
Can't believe that's
so bad.
Can't believe
that's
real.
It is so terrible. There's like
so
one
bad.
moment where there's a moment that I like where there's one line where Bill Paxton says to Gloria Stewart, he says, I don't know how to convince somebody who jumped off the Titanic when it wasn't sinking and jumped on when it was. There's that great line where she's the only person who jumped off when it wasn't. And I like that line of dialogue, and it wouldn't fit anywhere else in the film, but that's not enough to keep what is otherwise a very out of step.
Nice.
It's wild knowing that ending would have ruined the movie. It would have gone from like one of the greatest movies ever to.
But this is why we trust Jim. Jim.
But it is curious that he spent time and money to film a scene that's like 4 pages of dialogue. That was probably a couple of days of shooting. And
that's how the creative process works, man. You shoot the stuff, even the stuff you think might not work, just in case, like something.
Obviously he made the right decision in the end, so he can be trusted. But it is curious that at some point he thought this might not be a bad idea.
Well, it's like Ridley Scott. He'll cut. What is it? He cuts his favorite scene. At the very first thing is he cuts his favorite scene he filmed, so that everything else after that is okay to cut on the editing bay.
Nice. I'm going to have to rush us through some things here at the end of the show. I do have a hard out. I will quickly say Malcolm X and Fantastic Mr. Fox are both worth mentioning as well in this category. Quickly, if you guys have any other honorable mentions you want to shout out.
Mr. Fox was on mine as well.
I started doing a thing where I'm asking the gurus on the website what their picks are, and the top 3 picks were The Matrix, Fantastic Mr. Fox, and Monsters, Inc. I'd also throw out Traffic, and Malcolm X. I don't know if we mentioned that one or not.
Yeah. Nice. There you go. Quickly, let's do our buried treasure. I'll kick us off. John, you're our guest, so you go last. I got around to seeing a couple things I had missed. One, Andrew, I think will be one of your favorite movies ever. It's called Sisu. I didn't really care for it that much, but I think you will absolutely love it. The other is Polite Society, which a lot of people are really enjoying. I did not enjoy it as much as most, but I do think it's worth a watch. There's some really cool coming-of-age stuff from a culture we're not used to seeing coming-of-age stories from, and I really, really enjoyed that. Unfortunately, I think the movie takes a turn into ridiculousness that it didn't need to, and it kind of neuters a lot of the heart that was building in the movie. I think it kind of wanted to be RRR in some ways, but it's not. I don't go into it expecting like the female version of RRR. That's not what this is. In fact, it's a very English movie. It's very British. In just kind of its substance, style, and accents and those kind of things. Andrew, what's yours?
Guys, believe it or not, I finally wrote an article on sifpop.com. Like, I don't know how many years
Nice.
it's been, but I finally wrote my first article. It's called Hollywood Gunslingers, The Enduring Appeal of Westerns. And basically, I've been talking to Aaron Schweitzer about this for about 3 years now, saying that I wanted to write an article. And I've been writing it forever and ever. Finally got around to where I thought it was presentable, and it's basically a history of the different eras of westerns and what people found appealing about them. So just because you think you might not like westerns, that's kind of an overreaching statement. It's kind of like saying I don't like drinking. Like maybe you just haven't found the flavor
I know
of something
you
you
adore
like.
them, and so I will.
Well, when you
sounds
say
like
I
a
don't
good
like
read.
drinking, that can mean a couple different things, but yes.
I get
Yeah.
what you mean.
Yeah. I'm just saying fair enough. So that's mine. John, what you got?
A couple of shows, one of which is on Netflix. The other one you can watch free on YouTube because the BBC is not available stateside. It's called Kunk on Britain and Kunk on Earth. Each is a 6-part comedy documentary history series with a fake character played by Diane Morgan called Philomena Kunk. She's like a smart person's idiot, if that makes sense. Like she's clearly the humor is very intelligent, but it's very dumb at the same time. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'll quote a line in one of the first episodes where she's talking about the kings of England over history. And she mentions that King Edward just died at just 15 years old, the youngest anyone has ever died of old age. And there's a lot of great wordplay comments like that. And it's a fun way to learn history, both British and world history, through the lens of like an intelligently stupid person. It's the kind of thing. It's on YouTube. It's free. And the other series is on Netflix. Check it out. You'll know real quick if it's your brand of humor. For me, I was laughing out loud nonstop for all 12 episodes. The Santa Claus Christmas episode, she mentions Santa Claus is the world's most popular home intruder. Like I love this style of humor. It is right up my alley. Kunk on Britain. Brilliant.
There
show.
you go. That is
Nice.
Kunk on Britain and Kunk on Earth on Netflix and YouTube. The article on Hollywood Gunslingers is on a little website called sifpop.com. And Polite Society is available on VOD currently to rent or buy. Well, we did it, guys. We managed to do a podcast together. So congratulations to us. And thank you for joining us today. SifPop is part of the Studio DNA Podcast Network. You can find out more about other shows on the network at studiodna.media or by searching Studio DNA in your podcast player. Huge thanks to Andrew for hanging out again today.
Thank you, buddy.
Big thanks to producer Phil for producing the audio and video show.
Thanks, Phil.
Thanks to John Paula for giving of his time again today to talk about another Fast movie with us, becoming a tradition. Where do you want to send people, John?
The letterbox, it's on the graphic on my lower third here, JONPAULA. I write reviews every week. I watch movies every night, and you can keep up with all of it on Letterboxd.
Very nice. Much love and gratitude to our SifPop members as well for giving monthly to make SifPop a real thing. Support starts at $3 a month, and you can check all of that out at patreon.com/SiftPop. Lots of ways to connect with us. Feel free to leave a comment, a rating, or a review at Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Or you can even email us, feedback@siftpop.com. And finally, if you're having a good time, your movie-loving friends will probably like the show too. So make sure you let them know about it and that listening is much easier than playing pinball successfully with a crane in an automobile. We will be back next week with The Little Mermaid, the new one, and more.
My pick for the #1 movie of the summer.
Yes.
We just watched mine. Don't forget.
It's true. It's true. All right, guys, gotta run. Thank you for joining in live. Jay Bourgeois and Mystery Sauce, Go Clego. Good to see you all. Hope you had a good time. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye.